It's my privilege to introduce Pablo Delgado. He's the Executive Director of Open Arms Ministries, and the organization has partnered with us on many occasions, and we have enjoyed so much working together. Open Arms, their ministries or mission statement is that they welcome, accompany, and partner with Latino immigrants in building a safe and sustainable life. And after what you've heard, you can imagine how important it is to have a safe and sustainable life because they've escaped such awful conditions. So it's really our pleasure to have him with us, and he will just kind of express how this happens day to day. Thank you.
Well, we just brought a little video that we'll play. It takes 3 minutes, and
Y doy gracias a Dios y a ustedes por lo que hacen, porque si no fuera por ustedes, por lo que hacen, no fuéramos nada. Pero eso yo estoy consciente que lo hacen porque tienen una noción o porque tienen y han comprobado y están viviendo el amor de Dios.
Pues yo les agradezco mucho a ustedes, a todo su personal o las personas que me están ayudando, porque pues me han ayudado con las facturas, tanto para tener el programa WIC, Medicaid y todos esos programas, pues es gracias a ustedes, su ayuda, y pues la verdad muchas gracias.
Pues la verdad, pues primeramente pues hoy te doy gracias a ti y a Dios, pues la verdad pues para mí que me están brindando mucha ayuda, pues hay cosas que no sé y pues me están ayudando en eso, te digo, por no saber el inglés y por estar en otro país, te digo. Y una de las cosas también pues me han ayudado lo que es la ropa de mi hijo, hasta una cama le regalaron, pues la verdad estoy muy agradecido, en serio, que a mí yo siempre digo es una gran ayuda que están haciendo.
No, pues estamos muy agradecidos con la iglesia, ya que pues, por ejemplo, cuando yo me mudé aquí no tenía absolutamente nada, ni dónde sentarme. Y muy agradecido con la iglesia porque me proveyó el mueble, cuestión que yo no tenía. Me ha ayudado también con nuestra hija a inscribirla en la escuela, cuestión que es muy difícil para uno de latino no poder comunicarse, es de mucha ayuda para uno que alguien pueda asistirlo en esos momentos a uno. ¿Verdad? Y gracias a Dios, pues mi hija ya está estudiando y
Dios que te enseñe.
good morning, and good morning, and thank you for having me. I've been so excited about this event. I'm so thankful for every one of you. It's not easy to bring awareness about immigration and to bring people together with that interest, to want to learn and want to do something about it. Sometimes we don't know what, but I feel like with Dora's testimony and Jeff, and hopefully with a couple of stories that I'll share, it gives us a better idea of how to pray, how to partner, how to support. And so thank you for being here. My name is Pablo Delgado. I'm the director of Open Arms. Open Arms have been around for more than 20 years. Our mission is really, our calling is to be there for the immigrant, the Latino, Hispanic immigrants that come to our area. And where the Lord has blessed us with resources to actually even expand to other ethnicities. So we're also partnering and helping immigrants from other regions, other parts of the other parts of the world. People from Africa. I've just had the honor to meet family from Congo and from Afghanistan. Just different families that Open Arms is being able to help. So we, what you talked about, our mission statement, just a few stories that I wanted to share with you. On your right, there's a mom with 2 kids, 2 little girls. They're from Honduras. They came about a year ago. I think it was mid-November. They had flip-flops and shorts and very not very warm clothes. Honduras, it's very warm in November. Ohio, not so much. So it was a blessing to be able to provide them with coats. This is the before picture, by the way, with coats and boots for the snow. Similar with Luz on the other corner. I guess that would be your right. I'm really bad with right and left. So that would be your left. I'm sorry. With Luz, we've helped her with her many medical procedures that she has had in Cleveland Clinic, in Cleveland campus. She's had so many gastro problems since she was a baby. And so the mom told me, if I hadn't come to the U.S., I don't know that in my country, in Honduras, we would have had the medical equipment and the medical knowledge to intervene all of these problems that she has had. So we've been able and blessed to accompany her to all of her appointments, her surgeries. They allow for us to interpret. Not every medical facility does. Some of them, they have their internal interpreters. And then the last picture on the bottom, it's 2 separate families, 2 different fathers that are hugging their respective daughters. They left Guatemala when these daughters were just a few months old. They were tiny babies. They came to the U.S. for work to be able to send money back home so that they could survive. And after 20 and 23 years, their daughters are coming to the U.S. And so on a Sunday night, they come to my house. I don't even know how they knew my address. But they're knocking at the door, and they're like, Pablo, can we drive to Arizona? Because our daughters are in the border. And I'm like, well, I can help you put them in a plane and bring them here. And it was thanks to a shelter, kind of like what Dora was talking, a different shelter in Arizona. I had contacts there, and so they walked to the shelter because it was right there in the border, and then they transported them to the airport. I booked flights for them, and then we picked them up in the Cleveland airport with their fathers. It was very emotional. These are their fathers hugging their daughters after 20 plus years. I had to take a picture, and we in Open Arms, we believe in family reunification. We believe family is there's a reason why the Lord created the family. And so, yeah, just a few examples of stories of immigrants that we've been blessed to help. There are many things we try to help holistically to people. Services that we provide we interpret for them in many occasions. We transport them to medical and dental appointments. I'm just doing it by memory because I cannot read what I put on that. But we help we help with forms. So enrolling the kids in school is one of the hardest things for them because they have to do final forms online, and they have to authorize who can pick them up. And then there's just so many, there's 20, 25 forms that they have to sign. And so it's a really complicated for them. And so it's always, I know the process now by memory, so I always we help with that. It's one opportunity that we have. Legal immigration assistance, it's not really through Open Arms, but through Centro San Jose, the immigrant project. So we refer people there, and when we can, we have a legal budget, and so we will help the person. If the person cannot, you go on their own, we'll transport them, we'll help them to get to Jeff. And then we have a compassion fund that we use for any sort of medical bills, dental bills, diapers, formula, medication, sometimes, many times groceries. Sometimes I go with the family and I have to end up buying Doritos or Cheetos or something for the little kid because that was a need. He's looking at him and I'm looking at the kid and I'm like, if I was 5 or 6 or 7, I'd probably want that as a snack. And so a compassion fund is also for that. We have a tutoring program. When these kids come to the U.S., they don't speak English. It's hard for them to even read Spanish in many occasions. And it's because of our amazing tutors. Many of them are sitting here among you. And could you raise your hand if you're a tutor with Open Arms? Thank you. This is an amazing program. It really means it's so meaningful to see these kids every week. They come for help with English and with homework, but it became into almost a mentorship. So Miss Kathy Troyer, I'll just put her on the spot for a moment. I know that she takes some of those kids for Christmas cookies during Christmas. I know that some of them go and do pajama, like they'll go and buy pajamas because they have a pajama day in school. These tutors, they help them adapt to American society. It's not just a little bit of homework and a little bit of English. It's more than that. And so this is an amazing program. And if you're interested in ever partnering or volunteering with kids, this is a great opportunity. Seneca is right here, and she's the coordinator of that program. And so she'd be happy if you stop by and give us an email or something that we can send you more information. Then we have the summer camp. During the summer, we bring all these kids, and we're having a great problem. We're running out of space because we have so many kids this year. So we're trying to find some other place. Or we're trying to figure out what to do, but this summer camp, it's just for them to have fun. We do Bible classes and games, gardening and cooking. There was one year when we had counseling and we talked about trauma, and it was so important. For me, it was so important that we talked about, that there was counseling available for them. It was a group counseling, but many times when the families will come from Central America and South America, and they have to go through horrible journeys, just like you guys were hearing. Adults, I feel like an adult or even a teenager, you have in mind why you're doing it, what's the reason behind it. But when you're a little kid, everything is scary. You don't understand why you're having to run and stop and hide. You don't understand why all of these things are happening. Even if I was a little kid, even if somebody explained it, it's hard to comprehend. So it creates trauma after a while. And so we were able to have counseling here. Just not long ago, this family that I was helping, I can't mention her name, but this lady basically was telling me that she came to ask for asylum at the southern border, and so I never asked for details because it's not easy to talk about. But she was telling me that, she started in Guatemala with her little son, who I think was like 3 years old at that time, and just being transported through different vehicles. There was a point in Mexico where they put him in a semi-truck, in the back of a semi-truck, and it was so hot inside for hours. She says it was more than 30 hours. And the man in the middle, because they would put man behind and kind of like women and kids towards like closer to the back of the container. And so the men were just screaming in desperation because they were so hot, they thought they were going to die. And so, and then she gets emotional when she's telling me this, and she says, I was holding my kid. I didn't know if he was still alive or because he wouldn't wake up. I didn't know if it was the heat or if it was just that he was dead. And it's just the type of thing that it's just hard for the rest of people to imagine. We hear all these things in the news, and we hear all this, we hear the word immigrants like statistics, and I don't ever want to talk about anything that's, I want to focus on what the Bible tells us about and immigration, but we'll hear, somebody saying, well, if you guys vote for me, I'm going to do this, and that. Well, if you guys vote for me, it's almost like these families, these immigrants, these kids and mothers are used for statistics and numbers, and to be, and the people that benefit from using those numbers are people that will never get to talk to these families. So it's important for us. I know our calling is, as a church, as believers, it's important for us to be that intersection, to be that point where we meet those families, where we're called to find out what is it that they need, how do we help you, instead of just using them as numbers and putting them all in the same basket and talking about them. So just a few more families here. I'm not going to talk about each one of them. The lady on the right, on the top right, she had a rough, she went through a hard time where she lost her baby. Her baby was accidentally suffocated. And so we were able to be there for her. We helped with funeral costs. I had the honor to speak in the funeral, and we've been able to help her. She had to stop working when that happened, and so we were able to give her groceries and help her with her bills. Because it was obviously a very shocking experience. The baby was 5 months old, I think, and she woke up at 5 a.m, dropped off the baby at the babysitter, and then the next thing she knows is that she's getting a call. She worked in Creston, and the babysitter was in Orville, and so she got a call from the hospital just informing her that her baby had died and she had to come to the hospital. Just a very horrible experience, but that's when I understood, that's when I realized Open Arms is a lifeline for many families. It's not just English classes and games, it's not just clothing and boots, but it's they really have they feel comfortable and they trust the organizations, or Open Arms, the organization, to be able to help in those situations. We believe our thought is, our logic is, we don't want to just give them the fish in their hands, but we want to teach them how to fish their own fish. So the idea is to help them get established, to help them find jobs, develop skills. That's why we're partnering with different churches that provide English classes. This is just a list of our board, the board that we have right now. Many of them are here, and Lynn, who introduced me, she comes to this church, by the way. Just a very quick biblical. I think I'm allowed, because we're at a church. Depending on where I am, I can't really quote the Bible a whole lot. But it just very, very interesting picture here. There's two models in the book. At the end of the book of Genesis, in the beginning of Exodus, the Bible gives us two examples about foreigners. So the story of Joseph, we all know it. He was sold by his brothers to the Egyptians. The Lord allows for him to become a leader in Egypt. He's part of the government. He found grace in front of the Pharaoh's eyes, and so he's being very successful, and then there is a huge famine in his country, and so it says at the end, it says in Genesis that Pharaoh gave them the best part of the land. It was called Goshen, and so the Pharaoh welcomes these foreigners that are in need. He gives them the best part of the land. He blesses them. Jacob blesses the Pharaoh, and it's a beautiful connection between Egyptians and Hebrews. We could call it nowadays between Guatemalans and Canadians, between Mexicans and Americans. It's a beautiful international connection. Years later, just a generation later, it talks on the book of Exodus. It tells us the story of how the next Pharaoh was afraid. The next Pharaoh, he was afraid because they were multiplying, they were growing. He saw it as a national risk. He saw it as a threat. He took a position of fear. And what did he do? He made them slaves. And so that's when we have Moses, and he makes the people free, right? It's amazing what the transformation from one generation to another. And if you're here because I believe you have an interest in knowing more and learning about immigration and what you can do, just like Dora was saying initially, you spread the word. Things that you could do, you could pray for organizations like what you've seen today. You could pray for these immigrants. You could support, you could sponsor, you could be part of it. You could get involved in one of these organizations. This church, Westminster, they're such a key partner with us. They help us. They send us volunteers. They send us financial help. We're so appreciative with Pastor Aniko and all the work they do here. But it's not only this church's responsibility. When we pray, when we talk about it, it opens people's eyes. And then they stop, the immigrant families, they stop being them, those immigrants, those numbers. This is how those numbers affect our nation. And then they become people that, oh yeah, Maria and Pedro, did you know that Jose makes this amazing arroz con pollo, like rice and chicken? Or did you know that, they start becoming our friends, and we get to try their food, and we get to interact with them and hear their stories, and we tell them our stories. And I talk like if I was American. I'm not. I'm from Costa Rica originally. I should have said that. I came to this country because I met a beautiful lady one day that was from Seattle, Washington, and she brought me here. And she's the one standing in the back with our beautiful baby. That's Janelle, my wife. So I don't have a cool testimony or a cool story of how I came into this country. I came in a plane, sitting comfortably. They gave me cookies and water. But I do hear a lot of the rough stories. I'm an immigrant, just in a different path. The Lord blessed me by coming into, like I said, in a plane. But the families that we help every day, most likely they don't have the same, they're not on the same path. So like I was just mentioning, we hear about all these things in the news. We hear about just like people talking around, and it's always with such a negative, it comes surrounded with such a negative tone of voice, with racism, and there's so much involved. But things that we can do, we can pray, we can support, we can find out, we can talk to them and see if they really are, because nobody knows what an immigrant family is like until you talk to them, until you interact with them. And if the church doesn't do this, if we're not that point of intersection, who will? As believers, I know that we're called to just get out and reach out and be the Samaritan. The Bible talked about being the Samaritan. In the story of the Samaritan, there were three characters. There was the priest, there was the Levite, and then there was the Samaritan. And the two first, they were expected to help. In the culture, they were the people that were expected to go and reach out and help. The Samaritan was like an enemy to the Jews. It was somebody that was looked down. It was somebody that wasn't expected to go and help the person that had been robbed. And when the story ends, Jesus says, "Go and do likewise. Go and be that good Samaritan to the rest." And that's Jesus talking to us. We are called to be that Samaritan. As a church, as believers, we're called to get out and stop stop just looking at through a little window called television, but getting out of our houses and just talking to immigrants and finding out what they cook, what they like, what they don't like. How do we help? I love this Bible verse that I can hardly read, but it says, if a stranger dwells with you in your land, you shall not mistreat him. The stranger who dwells among you shall be like one of your natives. You shall love him as yourself. I'm going to skip the rest because it's too small. I am the Lord your God, Leviticus 19:33. So I appreciate you guys for being here, for wanting to learn. If one thing that I always like to say, if you have not had a chance to take a mission trip or to go on a mission or go on a trip to Central America, if you've never been to like Salvador or Honduras or Mexico, I promise you that if you come to Orville, it's almost like if you were taking a trip through Central America. You can meet people from Bolivia, from Peru, from Honduras. You can really experience and get immersed into the culture. Even here in Wooster, we help so many families, like Jeff was talking about. We help so many families from Peru right here that I just want to encourage you to come with us or come and interact. And just, I have like 4 more minutes, but just think about the ministry opportunities. How much does it cost to send missionaries out of the U.S.? How much does it cost to go to Africa and Central America and South America? Now we are presented with the amazing opportunity of just taking one car ride from your house to Wooster, to Orville, to anywhere where we're having maybe a tutoring program, or maybe we're having an event with immigrants, and right there you get so many nations in one place for what, like $5 that costs your gas? So it's an amazing opportunity to minister, to make friends. My calling, my encouragement is, let's not take a position of fear when we hear that all these groups are coming and that we're having so many immigrants. Let's take a position of love. Let's see it through a biblical lens. What does the Bible want me to do? Does it want me to be taking a position of fear and hate and reject? Or am I supposed to like Leviticus said, to love him as our natives? So that's what I had. Thank you so much for being here and for listening.
So just before lunch and before a blessing that Pastor Eniku and perhaps somebody else is doing with her, just a few lunch logistics. Our office administrator, Allison, is going to just start excusing a few tables. The doors will be opened up there and you'll be going through the line. After you do that, the silverware and the desserts will be on that table. And enjoy. The food is delicious. One thing to say about if you're writing a question or comment for Pablo, I personally can attest to the fact that if you decide to volunteer with Open Arms Hispanic Ministries, it is one of the joys of your life. So now next.
So Pastor Anico asked me to come back and just bless our food. I'll do it in Spanish. Gracias, Señor, por este día. Gracias por cada persona que está aquí, Señor. Gracias por proveernos esta comida. Ponemos este evento y el resto de las cosas que pasan hoy en sus manos. Señor, bendice las personas que prepararon la comida. En el nombre de Jesús. Amén.